comparison there between farmers and their cattle and the government and the quote-unquote citizens. And I'll get into that a little bit. I'm hopefully not going to burn up a lot of time, but I'm just going to try to get through this a little bit with a little bit of specifics here and there. So why do farmers take cattle? For breeding inventory, to determine if you need to obtain more heifers to ensure a good aged herd. Cattle must be tagged, provide an accurate count, and to keep track of their ages. Also, calling females, your cows, past calves, and how they performed. Tagging, when using electronic identification, like RFIDs, will allow you to view the records and of all details instead of relying on memory or record keeping. All right, sort of sounds similar to what they did when they put all medical records on computer and took it away from paper records, like was said and done when I was younger as a child. Record keeping for premium beef programs, sort of to follow lines, that kind of stuff. Individually identify your bulls, cows, and calves. You make the most of your management and to help in case of theft or in case of worrisome, you're worried about theft or theft in the area or a history of theft, that kind of stuff. Cattle tagging with RFID, all right, so I'm going to go into this a little bit. So let's use electronic identification as something that can be a huge time saver is how they sell it. So while providing cost saving and ensuring accuracy, RFID tags are small tags. They're placed into the area animals. Each one has a unique 15-digit number, and all you have to do is scan a tag using the reader to quickly and easily identify them. And any records that are kept as the technology is advancing, you could, see records on each cattle, each cow you have there. If they're tagged RFID and you have that technology there with it. Also, when you manually have to write, ID number down, and more to go with each cattle, there are human errors possible. I mean, there's always human errors that run amok in things, and that's just how it's always been. Nothing wrong with that. It just happens. You fix it. So by scanning numbers, it takes out the equation of having human error there for anything, of the record keeping or the counting, whatever. This can be a way to save a lot of time, save a lot of errors and mistakes, that kind of stuff. And cattle farmers, they hugely benefit from this, absolutely. The RFID thing is a whole nother scope. I would suggest anyone read The Invisible Rainbow, do a little research on that kind of stuff with EMF technology, because I know there's been a lot of reports from some farmers how it's affected the outcome, the birth, and the health of the individual cattle that they've had. Whether they've had them RFID chipped and when they haven't, they're starting to see a difference there, and it seems like it deteriorates with the RFID versus not. But anyways, that's a whole nother ballpark, a whole nother game thing to look into. So I just bring that up. If you're interested, read the book, The Invisible Rainbow, look into that kind of stuff, and then go ahead and dive away, research away. I recommend it, always, for everything. So I'm saying this stuff because the governments have been tagging the citizens. And like everything with government, it's always little by little by little until they get it all. Like taxes, originally were supposed to be nothing more than 1% income taxes. Well, where we're at now. And then it was just supposed to be only on businesses that made over, back when it was first 1913, I think it was businesses that were over $100,000 or maybe over $300,000, something like that. 1%, that was the max. And then never on an individual. Well, you know what happened. They get their foot in there, and then it's just they keep pushing and pushing and pushing. So now, if you think about it, tagging citizens, tagging you and I, What about birth certificates? Birth certificates, I just do a little bit about birth certificates, read a few points about birth certificates here. So they were kept at the churches. First of all, government had nothing to do with them when they originated in the beginning. That was that. They were just kept by, the churches that you belong to, in the area. And then, before they were made the norm, they were kept by churches, what I said. And there were no laws mandating when and how exactly a person should be legally recorded. All right? That didn't exist. Now, I got birth certificates started only appearing in the early to middle 19th century. All right? So we're talking 1850, 1840. That's when they started to appear. And then 1902, the United States introduced a nationally regulated process at a federal level. This was overseen by the first by the Bureau of Census. It was overseen by the census. 1902. That's when it started being something federally recognized. And since 1990, under the United Nations, the World Health Organization, WHO, by the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the system and issuing of birth certificates as proof of a man or woman being a permanent member of the underclass. And I underlined underclass multiple times because that's straight from them. The system of issuing birth certificates as proof of a man or woman being a permanent member of the underclass has become an international system. So what is the underclass? Well, obviously the underclass is them keeping tabs and tags on all of us. That's, well, what is there? The number of the elites. So we're going to talk about it. The elites. At the very top end, I would say maybe very top end. We're talking Rothschilds, that kind of stuff. There might be 100, at the very most. I would say I'm over exaggerating on that. It's probably closer to the double digits, low double digits. But then as you get out, when you're below the Rothschilds, that kind of stuff, Rockefellers, then it's in the hundreds for sure. And then you get a little lower tiered of the elites, and you're in the thousands, that kind of stuff. And you're starting to talk parliament, you're starting to talk presidents, you're starting to talk people in Washington, D.C. and America, that kind of stuff, the premier, all that kind of stuff we're talking, and all those around them. So those are not underclass people. We are the underclass people, is what they're referring to. So then, because they are considered chattel and mere creatures less than slaves. So what that means is, this is when this whole thing came about and they're trying to implement this and trying to figure this out, the elites, the people who had freedom, their freedom was never questioned ever. Kings, queens, that kind of stuff. Presidents, whatever you want to say. Them, when they're trying to figure this out, and how are we gonna, as the elite few, gonna manage all these millions of people, how are we gonna do it? Because they're not like us. They're the chattel. They're close to the cattle. They are the underclass. So this is their big deal. We got to figure out how we're going to do this, because we're outnumbered, we're outpowered, we're outsmarted, everything. We're the underdog in this. We can't let them know that. Once we let them know that, if we ever do, our whole thing is done. This whole charade is gone. And that's what they've been trying to prevent forever. And they've been doing a great job. You got to pat them on the back, because most of the people don't know this, because they've gone through government indoctrination camps called K through 12, and then higher education, primarily the universities, that kind of stuff. So I'm just going over this just because they're making sure they're tagging us. As a settlement, certificates and later birth certificates are solely and purposely designed to disenfranchise men and women from the rightful inheritance through voluntary enslavement and admission to being paupers. The system of birth certificates is wholly without legitimacy, a global system of organized fraud and crime, and without lawful effect. That's all that's to it in a nutshell. So then why? Why do you need that? Why do you have to have a birth certificate? Well, this is when it started. Then if you think about it, then how about the Social Security number? The whole Social Security program started. Back then, it was promised this and that, and you're not going to give out your Social Security number for nothing. It won't be used for anything. It won't be used to identify you. You'll never, ever be asked for your Social Security number, blah, blah, blah. All this kind of smoke they, blow up your rear end and make you believe it over and over until you become numb to it, and then they just slowly change it. A slow nudge here and there, and an emergency over here, emergency there, something crazy here while they're doing stuff in the background, just like they're doing right now, just like they always do. How about the census? The census. Have you always filled out the census forms? Have you always obeyed to the census forms? Well, I can't tell you what I've done, not on video, but I know from what I've read over the years, the penalty for not filling out your census form is $100. And then the penalty for filling out your census form, with stuff that's not accurate and purposefully doing that, it's $500. All right? That's what it is. Every 10 years they do the census, and now they're getting programs out there, and they have select places where they want to, they're doing more of a census type thing, and they're doing it every year. And they only have a handful of areas that they're doing that with. It's a trial run, like they do everything. How about your passport? Did you need a passport 100 years ago? Did you need you needed a passport 130 years ago? 140 years ago? Absolutely not. So why do you need it? Well, then they say it's all about protecting the country, protecting this country. We got to find out who's here, who's there. And we can't have people that are wanted or that are wanted by this government, or supposed to be in jail or escaped, whatever. It is all these lies that you tell you over and over. You got rid of this passport program in a second. You wouldn't really notice the difference, except you would feel more freedom, period. That's that. Same thing with, it's this whole other story, talking about different countries and the invisible borders, that kind of stuff. That's a whole other thing you get into. But I do advise to look into these things with an open mind. Look into them. Not with an indoctrinated mind, not with the premise of you're going to get from it what you want. You're going to get from it this thing, because that's probably going to get from it. Go in there and just read it with an open mind, and read multiples. Read this person said this, and read this person said the opposite. Read that stuff. Listen to that stuff. And make up your own mind for everything. And how about this Vax identification / health pass thing that they've been pushing for the last couple of years? Look at China. They're cashless. They've been cashless since, I think fully cashless since 2018. And the social credit score, I believe started in 2016 in China, and now they're trying to go along with this with us. Look at the ESG, for the companies, large companies now, and it's going to come down to the individual. They say it's not, as always. It's just for the big companies, never for the individuals. What they say, and then you wake up one day and all of a sudden, you don't understand how you lost all this freedom when there was a time you had a chance there to fight it or resist it or not go along with it. So I'm just saying this. They are tagging us. They have tagged us, and they're not happy with how loosely people are tagged and how little control they have if push comes to shove. And they know that. I feel we're at a point here where we either shift one way or the other. And one way is to go for more freedom and get it out of the elite's hands and help your families and help your friends and help your communities and that kind of stuff. Or the other way to go is with less freedom, more tyranny, and more, way of living, not free and with less. Because if you're told what you can have, what you cannot have, when you can have it, that's not freedom. You don't have a choice. You don't have an option to do what you want when you want, to make some money here, to associate with this person here, to go on vacation, to have friends, to do whatever you want, whenever you want. I don't know how else to say that. You understand that. It goes to everything. Sitting outside reading a book, collecting rainwater, to have a garden, to have, if you live in an apartment, to have plants on your patio, just right outside the apartment. Some places you're not allowed to have that, like California, I believe Arizona. They fine you if you are in a place like that and have plants. You want to have some sort of vegetable plants, that kind of stuff. People still have freedom to a point right now. And if they start using it more, they're going to get more. It's just the way it's going to go. You need to resist things. But the more you go along with it and the more you do it and you don't resist because it's easy, the more and more they're going to tighten that rope. I mean, they're going to squeeze until you can barely breathe. And then you're going to thank them because they loosened up a little bit right before they squash it or squeeze even tighter. I went into this talking about the comparison of farmers taking their cattle and why they do it, and not saying anything wrong with that at all. I think it's great. 2, the government's been tagging us and how they're tagging us more and want to tag us even more and why. And saying, in my opinion, do not let this happen. Do not let this happen. Do what you can. Teach your children. Pull them from government schools now. If you haven't done it the last 2 years, you got to do it now. I don't know what you're doing. Especially if you don't agree with this. Especially if you don't agree with 10% of it. Pull your kids. If you don't agree with 100% of it, I got to ask you, where have you been? Well, I'm working, my wife's working, or I'm working, my husband's working, or I don't know, I don't have the knowledge to teach them. I feel like they're going to be suffering because of this and that. But you know what? You probably went to public school, government school. You learned the stuff that they're going to be teaching your child, but you know more. You're going to teach them more because you're living with them. You're going to teach them the reality of life and the skills that they need to learn. In this stuff that they call public school now, which is government school, it's turned to be nothing but indoctrination, really. With all this feeling stuff and this hope stuff and you harm me and safe spaces and crap. There's no shop, there's no home ec, there's no small engines, there's nothing anymore like it used to be with real life skills being taught there. I mean, they don't have financial classes, they didn't have them really when I was growing up. I had to learn that on my own. And that's a never-ending learn. It's a never-ending discipline. You're never done learning that, just like everything. You're never done learning throughout your whole life. If you are done learning, that's when you fall into the hands of tyranny and governments who say, oh, come here, we'll take care of you, we'll help you, we'll tell you what to do. All right, well, anyways, this is probably longer than you wanted it, probably longer than I was planning, but anyways, if you like this, hit the like, share. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, all that stuff. And as always, stay vigilant. Protect yourself, protect your family, protect your wealth, and